JD Vance sat down for an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper, and they had a very fiery set of exchanges. I'm going to play this clip on the enemy from within comments that Trump made. JD Vance is going to try and defend them. Let's take a listen, and then I will react afterwards.
We're talking about Donald Trump and what he said.
Yes,
and Donald Trump says,
and you'd much rather talk about what Donald Trump allegedly said than what Donald Trump did in office. What he did in office, Jake,
what he said publicly,
1.5% inflation.
The military to go after the enemy within, which is the American people.
He did not say that, Jake. He said that he was going to send the military after the American people. Show me the quote where he said he was going to.
He said the enemy within.
He said far left lunatics. He's talking about people rioting
and Schiff.
He's talking about people rioting after the election. I think
the Pelosi's were rioting after the election.
He said
Adam Schiff was rioting after the election.
You're using two separate phrases. He said about using the military that far-left lunatics, people who riot in the wake of an election, people who burn down American cities in the summer of 2020, yes, we should have a federal law enforcement
This is what he said to Joe Rogan on Friday. The enemy within that he wants the military to go after.
No, this is
the enemy within a bigger problem than Kim Jong-un.
The second part.
We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. That's who that enemy within.
And did he say that he wants to use the military against those people? Here's the game.
The military to go after the enemy within.
Here's the game that you're playing. He said that No. Can I answer the question, please? He said that he wanted to use the military to go after far-left lunatics who are rioting, and he also called them the enemy within. He separately, in a totally different context, in a totally different conversation, said that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff were threats to this country.
Were the enemy within.
The
enemy within. He said they were the enemy within.
So every time he uses the exact same phrase, we assume that he uses.
I don't know. I don't throw around the term of enemy within to talk about using the military against going American people.
And you're asking his vice president, but you won't let me answer the question. I'm telling you that Donald Trump has said, and I agree with him, that we should use the U.S. military to go after people who riot, who burn down our cities.
And this was what John Kelly was. This was what John Kelly was alarmed by. The idea of using the U.S. military to go after Americans. That's what he said.
Donald Trump never said Americans writ large. You keep on putting words in his mouth. And
are they or are they not Americans?
Far left people who commit acts of violence, who riot.
Now you're doing a very narrow definition of what he said, which is not what he said. That's not what he said. But let me ask you the bigger question.
He did say that, Jake. He did. He said that he wanted to use the U.S. military. Let me clarify.
Go after far left lunatics, yes. And then he also added
people who were rioting and looting.
And
he never said.
He added Schiff. And then he added the Pelosi.
Then
he added people that don't want the country to succeed.
He said that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi he used in a separate context, in a separate conversation. And what you're doing is you're smashing two totally different conversations.
Fox asked him about this last week, and he didn't take issue with it. He said the enemy within is the biggest threat to this country.
But did he say the enemy within that he's going to use the military against Nancy Pelosi? Donald Trump offered Nancy Pelosi the National Guard on January the 6th, and according to private emails, she rejected.
Okay. Let's talk about this. Is J.D. Vance right that Trump technically did not literally say, I will use the military against the American people? Yes, he's technically right that that is not a direct quote. But we can use simple reasoning, simple logic to find that he was, in fact, talking about using the American military against American citizens. He said that he would use it against, quote, far left lunatics. The enemy from within are far left lunatics who riot after the election. Okay, rioting obviously is a crime. You can prosecute people for that. There's no excuse for it, generally speaking. But then he goes on to point out also the enemy from within is Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. So, complaining about those high-profile Democrats in Congress, I would imagine he'd have a few more Democratic names in Congress to point out too. Joe Biden would probably be on there, even though at that point he would be retired. Barack Obama, he would probably throw him in that basket too. He's talking about using the American military against duly elected members of Congress who are of a different political party than him. So let's be clear. Yes, even though he did not say he will use the military against American citizens, what he's saying is that he will use the American military against American citizens. Do you really trust this guy to be in charge of government, using the American military and labeling people far left lunatics so that he can justify using the American military against them? That doesn't sound safe whatsoever. That's not something we want to gamble on. And you know what? Even taking Trump at the most charitable interpretation of what he said, whatever it may be, I'm not I'm not even going to try and steel man these comments, but there are different ways in which you can interpret it, and some of them are more charitable than others. This is not something that we want to gamble with, no matter what he said. Even if he said we should only use it on rioters, even if he said we should only use it on far left lunatics, this is still something that we don't want to gamble with. It is a gamble to elect Donald Trump when he says stuff like this. Let's be clear. And yeah, I kind of wish that he had another debate with Kamala Harris so that we could give him a chance to say that again on the debate stage in front of millions of Americans. And then Kamala Harris could make her funny face and laugh and say, talk about extreme, like she did with the Haitians eating pets story. But yeah, JD Vance put on a masterclass in sophistry here. He's got a tough job to do. He's got to defend Trump. And I feel like he did a good job at being playing dumb, basically saying, well, no, he didn't literally say that. He was just talking about rioters. And then, yeah, Tapper points out Pelosi and Schiff weren't rioting. And he said that. Let's just be clear, dude. He wants to use the military to target people who disagree with him politically. He thinks that disagreeing with him politically is a crime, plain and simple. And that's what authoritarians do. So yeah, Vance went to law school. I'm in law school. Look, I know how to tell some good sophistry when I see it, and this is great sophistry. He did a good job being evasive. The right-wing base is going to eat it up. There are people on X right now saying, Vance absolutely obliterated Jake Tapper. Oh my goodness, he owned him. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Vance is back in the summer, he was harming the ticket a lot, in the sense that, he had a really horrible approval rating, the worst of any VP nominee in history. And now it's like, okay, well, Trump's basically polling even with Harris. It's a tie. It's a close race. So yeah, I think he's doing better than he was back in the summer. I'll say that. He did better than people expected during that debate performance. And yeah, hopefully, get this clip out there, show this clip to your friends, to people who think, oh, this is just a moderate guy. No, this guy says that Trump actually won the 2020 election. This is not a moderate, nice, wholesome American guy, not your father's Republican Party, not your grandfather's Republican Party. This is something else. But yeah, if you found this video interesting or insightful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.